And it's a lot broader than perhaps it's been made to sound in some of the public discussion. So if you're interested in that, I would encourage you. It's in the New Jersey statutes. It's in Title 19, which deals with elections. And there's a lot of other resources at the university levels. Hit their websites, and you can find out the facts about what it is you need to do in order, if that's something you want to look into, and whether you qualify to be a voter from Brigantine, if that was your choice.
If we pay like 100% of the taxes, we pay the same taxes as everybody else, but we have no say. So there can't be anything.
Well, I mean, the fundamental, and I absolutely sympathize with you, although I'm a single homeowner. The fundamental problem is that you can only vote from one place, and if you happen to pay a lot of taxes in the place from which you can't vote.
Yeah, pay a lot more taxes down here than I do at home, a lot more, yeah.
The state, they don't make it easy on you, and there is an absolute constitutional restriction that you can only vote once. In any election, that means once.
But what about our
place.
representation then?
Well, again, I encourage you, look at New Jersey statutes. This is a subject that is addressed, it's been dealt with, and when you read it and you see maybe it's something that applies to you or others in a similar situation.
And the issue, and I said this earlier, I think that if we sat down and analyzed the issues, we would come to a consensus that we all want the same thing, whether you're here on a year-round basis or you're here on a part-time basis, because ultimately, good government, a very, very well-functioning public safety department, public works and all those things, and a good school district is going to have an impact on your property taxes. And the reason I mention a school district is that everyone coming into our community is not buying just a second home. There are families that will move in, and what they're looking for, and if you look at real estate websites, one of the first things that pops up is the quality of the school. So all of those things impact property value.
I anticipate moving here full-time, eventually landing here, within 5 years.
Good. And the other thing I want to make very clear is this whole issue of however it was characterized before, and if there were people who said things that were inappropriate about part-time residents, I didn't agree with it then. I don't agree with it now. We welcome our summer residents. I have to tell you that I married a summer resident. Okay, she's a full-time resident now.
And we buy a lot of homes from Mr. Simpson.
Exactly. But this idea that the full-time residents don't like the summer residents, it's really something I think that is overblown and has grown a life of its own that makes very little sense. In any shore community, is there going to be a little grumbling because on a Memorial Day weekend people come down with 5 cars and park? That's okay. That's why. People may be unhappy because they don't have the spot in front of their house, but the overall positive impact of having second homeowners as part of our community and investing our community, that little inconvenience, if that's what it is, pales in comparison to the good stuff that goes on. And to be honest with you, we wouldn't have the businesses that we have here on a year-round basis if we didn't have our summer residents coming. We all recognize that, and I hope that that's not a message that's miscommunicated, that people feel in any way that in any way are disparaging toward the summer residents.
And again, I made my living early on in the gas station business and the repair business and stuff like that. And I own property in Brigantine, and when the taxes go up, they reflect on me a lot. And that's why I'm up here right now. But I don't care if you're here for 5 minutes or 50 years. I respect everybody that comes in, and I made a good living out of the gas station business when the out-of-towners, whatever you want to call yourself, the part-time residents. And I have a home, I got a couple homes in Florida that I'm not allowed to vote too, and I know your frustration on that part of it. I pay a lot of taxes there too.
Well, we do thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jerry.
Jerry Seach, 1201 Ocean Avenue. I speak as a private citizen here. I know the mayor and the captain from the fire department both talked about an investigation. Feel free. I would recommend to the council, you all know there's a lot of innuendo, there's a lot of emails and Facebooks and other social communications talking about abuse of overtime in the public safety departments. This is not going to go away. What I recommend is that I recommend to the council that we set up a special investigation of the public safety departments in terms not of freedom of information requests, but in terms of whether there is or is not abuse in those departments. Will not be clarified unless a nonpartisan or a agreed upon investigatory body looks at this and makes some kind of advice to the citizens of Brigantine. We're all taxpayers and we're paying through the nose for these particular overtime amounts. So I would urge the council to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Fred, how would we go about doing something like that?
Okay.
You can get back to me at another date.
No, it's here. Let's at least begin to deal with it. Someplace buried in New Jersey statutes, and it is buried because it isn't used very often. There is a statute that permits a governing body to appoint a special investigatory committee. And as surprising as it sounds, if it is properly formed, that committee actually has subpoena power. So there is a tool sitting out there in the New Jersey statutes. I've only seen it used once, and it was used wrong, and it ended up in court. Now, that's not to say that if you are not careful and if you are precise, you can probably find a way to do it. Having said that, I think you have to ask the next question, which may be the more important question. Do you actually want the members of the governing body to be serving on this investigatory committee, or do you want to get it done independently? And I suppose if you conclude that you want it done independently, we can explore mechanisms that could be used. And without having researched it or thought it through altogether, is it possible to retain, by way of an example, a retired Superior Court judge and present the issues to that individual who may then begin to work and do the investigation that you are envisioning? That's simply one example. Are there resources that are available in terms of certified mediators or certified arbitrators under AAA who have also the skills to do it? Maybe. I'm giving you some ideas. So either you go back into the New Jersey statutes and do, in fact, create an investigative committee of your own membership, that it's sitting there, or we have to talk about something else. You also, if you don't want to engage those more extreme remedies, could possibly even do it in-house with your senior staff. I mean, you're going to have to talk through that and try to figure out what it is that you're going to achieve by doing it.
Well, let me I think that a lot of things surrounding what has come out need to be investigated. But let me put some context on this. I understand that there's been an Oprah request, and there were, by the description of what I've heard, over 600 documents. I don't know, Lynn, if that's accurate or not.
I would just like to jump in here.
What?
I had met with the IAFF recently, and the IAFF has asked for an investigation on the Oprah request to be done.
Right.
So that's underway right now, so I don't think we should be talking about that situation of the Oprah request in the public meeting.
No,
at the
I'm not.
moment.
I'm just, what I'm getting at is, it'll touch on it a little bit, but I think the things that were distributed here at the last meeting, which I do not have in front of me, but from memory, I think we were talking about 29 hours that someone identified as, they thought were inappropriate out of 600 and some pages. Let's put that in context. If it's $100 an hour that is paid, that's $2,900. We budgeted $439,000, and no one seems to be upset about a $300,000 increase, but they're worried about 29 hours that they think are inappropriate. I think we can clearly look at the documents, and I think I appreciate the fact that you're doing that investigation, but somehow all this doesn't fit together.
But I think we have to let the rhetoric die down so we can make a logical decision going forward. And I don't think we're in any situation to do that right now. There's been a lot flying back and forth. And to say that we want to move into a situation with subpoena powers and all of this, it's really getting, I mean, to the point of phantasmagorical, if nothing else.
Why don't we do this? Let me suggest that, since none of us know the first thing about whether, much less whether we would ever want to do it, but what it would entail to have such an investigation, can we ask Fred to report back to us on what it even is that one might do if you wanted to do it? And then, Fred, because I know you like holiday meetings, maybe we could get together on the 4th of July.
Yeah, we could do that, and Christmas, too.
Get a little
Why
barbecue
stop
in.
at the 4th of July? No, look, I'll try to get you more information on it. But let me also share something else with you. If we get to the point where we begin going down this line, I don't want to serve as counsel to that committee. From my point of view, I do what I do here in a way and for a reason, and I'm not going to find myself in the middle of that, okay? I have to be independent in trying to assist you through the issues you deal with at these meetings. So don't be looking at me to be the counsel to any committees, and I say that respectfully. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Fred, and I appreciate your honesty on that issue. And so I guess under advisement at this point, Joe.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name's Joe Barton. I live in Tabernacle Township, and I live in Brigantine here on 502 East Beach Avenue for the past 15 summers. And my family has wonderful memories of every summer that we've been down here. I look forward to having those memories with my grandchildren into the future. Like you, I serve in my town. I'm actually the mayor of my town, and I struggle with the same thing you do, but the dynamics of Tabernacle and the dynamics of Brigantine are totally different. I'm a 50 square mile Highlands town. We have 2,210 houses with less than 7,000 people. We have no paid public service employees. And I appreciate the jobs that you do. You do a great job here. It's very tough. We need police here. We need firemen here. I'm a past president of Burlington 200 Club, so I get it. I understand what police and firemen do. I support them wholeheartedly. I also served on the New Jersey State Police Museum Board. But Mayor, I think you're correct. It's the contracts. We heard the debate with the fire captain about contracts. I was a labor leader. I also was in management, and I understand the contracts. You have to follow the contract. Whatever the contract says, it has management's rights, and the unions have certain rights. But Mayor, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said the contracts have to change over time. When Governor Cody became the governor, I remember that he said, the problem with my budget at the time was a $24 billion budget, is that 1/3 of it is pensions that I can't touch. I've got to fund it. And I have a friend of mine who was he's a retired police chief at 38 years of old. He's 38 years and he retired, 38 years old. He'll probably live longer than he worked, collecting a pension. And I suspect from what I hear that the vote was to dissolve or eliminate the public safety director. And I think you have an opportunity here when you go back to having chiefs with those contracts, and to have a contract so that you can't cash out your vacation, so that you can't have comp time. I mean, I find it amazed that certain people retire, and in 25 years, they never took a vacation day or were sick. I said, how do you do that? That's amazing. But I think you have an opportunity with that contract, and also to say to that person, if you want to be our chief, this is not a revolving door for someone to get promoted to a higher level, to get into a higher pension, that you must serve to your age 65 or 62, that you can't retire after 20 years in that leadership position. So I would encourage you, when you do the contract with these, which I suspect are executive positions, that you think in those ways. And that's the comments I have. And I thank you for all the good memories, and I look forward to more.
Thank you, Joe, and
Thanks, Joe.
hopefully you'll get a striper.
Pardon?
Hopefully you'll get a striper.
Yeah,
I know
thank you for allowing me to fish till later in the mornings.
Enjoy. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Are we still going to have council comment? Because I have some.
Yeah, we're going to close the public comment, and I think we need an executive session.
Well, but I have some comments.
Okay.
First of all, I want to thank all the secondary homeowners who have come out today for a Saturday meeting on Memorial Day weekend. It's important that we hear your input, so I thank you. It's the specific reason that we have such a meeting, and we're going to have another one in June. So I hope that some more secondary homeowners come out. Somehow or other, one of the questions that Mrs. Phillips asked morphed into a budget question and a golf course question, but in fact, we are down a number of men in the fire department. The overtime budget, which Mr. Simpson and Mayor Gunther go back to over and over and over again, the overtime budget, the overtime budget, the overtime budget. That's the message, that's the mantra. But in fact, we're down 7 people in the fire department over the last year. And we know that we need to have men in those positions to decrease the overtime. There is a plan. The mayor is well aware of the plan. Mr. Simpson is well aware of the plan. The plan is taking place right now. Questionnaires have been sent out to eligible people to be chief. There are interviews going to be scheduled with those people. We have received resumes from people who want to be part-time firefighters. And in fact, since the mayor has gone on record as supporting full-time firefighters, and yet Mr. Platt, who lives in Captain Platt, who lives in a community with volunteer firefighters, says yes, he feels safe, it becomes obvious that there are part-time firefighters who are fully trained who can keep our city safe. So I'll go on record as saying I want to see a structural change in the fire department consisting of some part-time, fully trained firefighters that'll save this city lots of money, not just now, but forever. Finally, Mr. Simpson alludes to how he proposed hiring people for $30,000 and having 22 steps, and that this would be his proposal. And Mr. Platt, or Captain Platt, says he thinks the city will be pleased with the proposal that the fire department puts forth. The problem, and that they've approved, apparently. The problem is they've made no proposal whatsoever. And lastly, when Mr. Simpson says we don't do anything, I know a number of people on this council and I work with them closely. I certainly know that Mayor Gunther, that Mrs. McClay, that Mr. Picardi, that Mr. DeLucre, and that Mr. Palella work very hard, as do I, for this city. So when he says we do nothing, I think that he's speaking for himself, perhaps, or that he's not getting his way, but he's certainly not talking for me. Thank you.
Well, Frank, when you've been in this business as long as I have, and if you don't look at the overtime problem, you're foolish. Yeah, I keep on going back to overtime.
Well, Andy, let's go back to the $765,000 that the golf course lost this year.
Okay,
That if it wasn't for that $765,000 that the taxpayers of the city of Brigantine have to make up, that every household on this island will pay $87 this year towards the upkeep of the golf course. If it weren't for that golf course, there would have, in fact, for the first time in Brigantine history, been a decrease in our budget of $48,000.
Frank, I let you talk.
So let's go back to
You know,
that mantra.
Well, I just pick out things, we haven't got to the golf course yet. I voted yes to do the consultant, and we'll see where that goes, Frank. But I turned around and people get upset, you know, some people in council get upset. All I'm trying to do is save us $500,000. Look at overtime. I'm looking at overtime. You know, and I don't know why, you know, if we're partners in business, just like you're saying that we're taxpayers and everybody else is taxpayers out there. And I'm trying to save 500,000 or trying to point it out, you know, where we could work together and lower the number. I don't know why is everybody so upset. you know?
Because there is a plan, you know there's a plan, and you know that it's going forward.
No, I don't know there's a plan. You know?
Frank, since you included me in the conversation, I appreciate your acknowledgement that members of council work hard, and I know Councilman Simpson does as well, because I actually give him, people call me about certain golf course issues, he's always the first one to go out and look at those issues and try and resolve them. But a couple of things I just want to clarify. I know the manager will clarify this as well. I believe that there have been proposals sent back and forth between the fire department and the city.
I was told by my labor council that the only thing that I can say is that the two lawyers are working on it. I can tell you the city sent a proposal to the union. I can also say that I have not seen any proposal from the union. When I met with them on Thursday, I did ask the attorney for the IAFF if I'd be receiving one, and he said no. So they're just working together at this point.
The other point I want to make is let's be very honest about the plan. We are where we are today because the voters put a petition forward and forced this issue to be dealt with, and that is the naming of chiefs. They want chiefs to run those departments. Without the vote, we would probably still be in limbo like we were before, and I want to congratulate the voters for taking the initiative to make that happen. But the plan is one of waiting to see what direction to take. There really isn't a plan. So if, in fact, part-time firefighters, if that's the direction we're going, it's taken an inordinate amount of time to apparently get these people fully vetted and hired. I don't agree with that process. And the other part of it, Frank, is the golf course didn't lose $785,000. The golf course actually lost $186,000. But because of the budgeting, you can't anticipate more than you took in the previous year. We have to budget for that amount. The golf course actually has a $200,000 surplus that's sitting there that we're not allowed to use because you can't use surplus when you're in deficit according to New Jersey accounting rules. So we need to be very, you know, the golf course is up. I mean, the revenue's up 35%. You know, this year is moving forward, and we're not sure where it will go next year. But, you know, we have to be honest about where things are going. And, you know, I think, once again, we need to look at how people are reacting to the decisions or lack of decisions that are being made. And in the case of the public safety issue, they took the initiative. Okay,
Jennifer, I have one question.
I'm sorry.
I have one question. And there's a lot of discussion back and forth about overtime. But I'm going back to Mrs. Phillips' question, and I don't know if it was answered.
That's right.
Can someone answer this for me? Who has the authority to approve overtime?
The city's interpretation of that would be the department head, whether it's a chief or director of public safety. During the agreement, the mediation that occurred back in February, the write-up, the union took out language from policy, quoted language from policy saying in the absence of a chief, the captains have that authority to approve the overtime. We are not in agreement with that. There was numerous emails that went back and forth between the director, the captains at the time, but the captains continue to approve the overtime under their interpretation of this.
And once it's approved, it must be paid?
Yeah, if an employee gets approved overtime, whether that's from whoever, that's their senior person that's above them, they do the work, you have to pay them. We can't
right.
go back and say,
So at
we
the
won't pay you. That would not be
in
right.
answer to her question, at the present time, the captain acting as chief is the authority that grants overtime, that grants the...
When they're in working as officer in charge, their interpretation of the mediation, of the agreement that was made, is that they have the authority to approve the overtime. We were not completely in agreement with that, and there was, I saw some emails to Dan after the fact that the overtime was incurred as a, informing him that this had happened, so he was aware.
When you say it's their interpretation, that confuses me. Does it say it in the memorandum of agreement that they approve overtime?
There's nothing in the memorandum of agreement that mentions overtime.
So let me ask this question going forward, because apparently this is not going to be easily identified. But going forward, when chiefs are in place, which they will be, the chiefs will approve the overtime?
Yes.
And then the oversight, the
I-
overall oversight for the financial status of the city is the review that you do, looking at the trends and
Yes.
making sure that things are appropriate. I mean, even checking, I understand after, you can't not pay somebody after they've done it.
Right.
But looking at whether that is an appropriate use of overtime.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, please.
Yes.
Let me just back up a second.
Well, can I get an answer?
I'm trying to answer a question. I
Well,
think
the
we're getting off the topic.
No, I want to know who's going to approve it going forward, because we can,
It's two different, the problem is it's two different questions, and I'm trying to explain to you. There's a process, and like Captain Platt alluded to, and rightfully so, if there's an emergency situation, recall, whatever have you, the officer in charge of the shift, generally captain, sometimes lieutenant, I come in, he authorized me to come in, he signs as the commanding officer. Now, that's exactly what the slip says, commanding officer.
Right.
That slip, that work has already been done. That slip then goes to the department head, the chief, whoever it's going to be, and then it's past tense at that point. That person then signs off on it. Obviously, if that person in the future is going to be a fire chief, would have a problem, they can go back and say, what was this for? I think the question needs to get answered is, the work already happened. If it's going to say something like the polar bear plunge, we had a discussion about the polar bear
Right.
plunge, how many people do you need? The chief will have the ability to say, no, you're only going to have 2, 3, 5, 25 people, and that's what's put in place. Where the question comes in at, and I think a lot of the discussion is happening, what happens past tense? Once that work was already done, the OIC, captain, lieutenant, signs off on it, it's already done. They then goes to the department head, which up to February 19th is me, after that's the captains, to sign off and authorize it. Then it goes in the firehouse software or the police software, and then it goes to the CFO and they pay it. So going forward, obviously the chief will be the one who ultimately says that was okay, but the problem is going to remain
Just off the page.
is the person authorizing it and saying it's okay at that particular time is the OIC.
I think the problem is the word approval.
Right.
Right, but I think what you're dealing with, though, are two different types of overtime. One's emergent.
Correct.
You know,
Which
the
is the
other
majority.
is,
Right.
as you described, how many people do we need for the polar bear plunge? That's where the discussion is going to be between the chief and probably the city manager to say, chief's going to say, I need all these people for, this is what the cost of this event is going to be. And the city manager is going to say, you know, that, okay, let's do it. Or maybe you need to, to adjust that going forward because of our
We
budget.
do all of that, but that's not where the problem is. The problem is in staffing every day. When somebody's taking vacation, there's sick days, things of that nature. That's what's causing the overtime. So let's suppose a firefighter calls out, a captain will replace that at overtime right at the captain's salary. But, also with the overtime, which I think's eluding everybody, is that there is a trend that people are cashing out the dollar amount this year rather than accruing it in comp time like they did in prior years. So that's making up for, significant amount of our budgeted overtime, which is better for us in the long run. But that's where it is. And when we have an event like the polar bear plunge, yes, we all sit there. We just had the bonfire for the 4x4 parade, and we discussed as a group, how many, firefighters we would need, if there would be overtime involved and things of that nature.
I would imagine at weekly staff meetings with the chiefs, that would be discussed too. Where are we in overtime? And
I get submitted by the chiefs, since I started here, from payroll, like I said earlier, their overtime amounts. And then I would sit and ask them if it was, up considerably high from other years, or there was a, spike, what it was. And sometimes that could be training, it can be an event, could be the storm, things of that nature. But this year, it's just different, and some of it's, it's because of the staffing.
thank you. We're actually not in the public portion. I closed that. But I think we were trying to get to the executive session. We do need an executive session? Okay. And Fred, the topics?
I understand it's a single topic on a contract, in terms of a potential contract that we may be.
Okay.
And
So
personnel.
negotiations.
Well, and personnel and a board appointment, potentially.
Okay, so we have negotiations, personnel, and a board appointment. Yes, I'm sure we'll be taking action when we return.
Whereas the Open Publics Meeting Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the governing body wishes to discuss negotiations, personnel, and one board appointment. Minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires that confidentiality, then the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved that the public be excluded from this meeting. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Okay, need a motion, second?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
If you are not here when we return, we understand. It is a beautiful day out there, but we do anticipate we'll be taking some action when we return. motion to resume the meeting?
So moved. Second.
Third, fourth.
All in favor?
Aye.
As we always do, the solicitor will comment on topics that were discussed in executive session.
In the executive session, the mayor and city council discussed two personnel matters. One is the status of the negotiation with the Teamsters local. Additional information in regard to this matter will be made available to the public today when council entertains an appropriate resolution. A second personnel matter was discussed relating to appointments to certain boards. Additional information will be made available today when council considers a motion for an appropriate appointment. There was also a discussion in regard to certain contract matters, specifically the terms of a proposed contract for the licensing of ice cream sales on the beach for the 2014 season. Additional information will be made available in that regard today also, as council will consider a resolution authorizing an auction for the ice cream license.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, we need a motion to ratify the agreement with Teamsters.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, could we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McLeod?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we also need a motion for an appointment to the Cultural Arts Commission.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to nominate Grace Franzoy to the Cultural Arts Commission. I think she would be an asset, and there is an opening on that board.
Thank you, Frank. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. The last matter is the authorization to
For the auction or for the license for the sale of ice cream for the 2014 season, based upon the discussion of council in the executive session. If council wishes to move forward with this, a motion would be in order authorizing such an auction. That motion would include the fact that the minimum bid will be $40,000 with a 10% certified payment of the minimum at the time of the auction. The balance of the fee would be paid in two payments, one 15 days after the auction, the second payment an additional 15 days or 30 days after the auction in total. It will be required of the successful person bidding to comply with all components of the appropriate city code section dealing with the sale of ice cream on the beach. So if someone wishes to make a motion to that effect.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, can we have roll call?
Simpson?
Yes.
McLeod?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, seeing no other business before council, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Can we stay longer?
And do want to remind of the Memorial Day services that will be tomorrow, starting at the American Legion at 11:30 and marching over to Memorial Plot on 32nd Street at 12 o'clock noon. Please, if you can, come out to show your support for our veterans and those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the defense of our nation. Thank you. Enjoy the Memorial Day weekend, and I want to thank those individuals who came here today and welcome all of our summer visitors. Have a good day.